Salutations, Dufos. This is your fabulous leader, the Queen of Shade, coming at you with a very special presentation. I am moving full speed ahead. I'm enjoying these conversations that I'm having. I call them interviews, but they're not. They're really conversations with other very talented, very inspiring, very uplifting people. And having said that, I have someone whom you probably know already, but I get to introduce her. So bear with me. This young lady, woman, is the TV co-host of the Daily Blast Live. She has a podcast, Come Back with Erica Cobb. She does a show on IGTV. We know they've changed that, but the name of the show is Who Cares What We Think? And then she also does work with a division of CASA, which is dedicated to the advocacy of children. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Erica Cobb.
Thank you, Queen.
Listen, I had to do it right. I was like, how are you?
Wonderful. Yourself?
I am loving that room.
Oh, thank you.
The lavender, I need a room like that.
Thank you. Yeah, this is the She Shed studio.
Yes.
It's my, I would say my second home, but we're in my home. So it's a division of the home.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. My God. I love how you create your ambiance, what you need, where you go, when you go. That's something that a lot of people don't. We get labeled as difficult when we do things like that. It's like, but when you do self-care, like I need this to work. I need that to work. For me to give you the best of me, I have to have what I need to be able to do that. And yes, and I'm saying that to you because you came into my life right before the pandemic. Honey, it was during the pandemic because it was actually during the Black Lives Matter movement when it was really on the ground and the George Floyd situation. We're not going to spend a lot of time there because it was publicized everywhere. You were on TV talking about it. Everybody was on TV talking about it. But I'll never forget, I was actually on Instagram and someone else posted a clip of you. They tagged you. I love when they do that. But you were basically explaining to your co-host, the Black experience, and especially that coming from a Black woman and how it meant and what it felt to be respected in all arenas, in all areas. And I sat there and I'm like, here is this beautiful Black woman sitting on television, telling it like it is. Like you were literally, and I loved it because you could tell it was passionate, but it wasn't aggressive. There was no, you were just doing what you do. And I love that because I was looking at your page just now and I'm reading, some of the print on your videos. And I love it because you said, listen, if I don't agree with something, you're going to hear it from me. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, if I don't agree with someone or something, you're going to hear it from me. And that, I can't tell you how much that motivated me. I can try, but it motivated me so much because even though I have been doing this work, I've been the Queen of Shade for 6 years. It's been an up and down roller coaster. We finally got it to this, and this is okay for now. We don't know what's coming next. We have some things in the works, but this is good for now. But to be able to be unapologetically yourself, even in mainstream arenas, that was what I saw in you. And that moved me so much to where I followed you. And I love that, I got listen, I don't have PR people. I worked my ass off and I got my blue check. They came to me and was like, listen, you're putting in a lot of content on our platform. We're going to verify you. That's how it happened for me. Everybody else got reps and yeah. Yeah. So I worked really hard for that. And, but that check holds weight, because it's like, okay, well, let me find out who this person is. And we started corresponding. And I just love everything that you do and stand for. And we're going to get into it because I'm giving you your flowers while I can. And people need to know that you are a phenomenal woman. As Maya Angelou said, you are a phenomenal woman. You stand up in who you are, for what you are, what you believe in. And what I love is it's never in an abrasive manner. You have mastered the ability to walk that line. So it's like, I can still tell you, don't call me the N-word, but I love you.
Exactly.
You see, like, don't, like, with a
Yeah.
smile. So tell everybody, where are you from?
So first of all, Queen, I just want to thank you so much. I mean, that was so like I was getting chills every time you said something that really to me just means that that's a connection that we made. And I am so blessed in my life that I started I started radio really when I was 12 years old. I got my first internship officially when I was 18 and I was in college. And that connection is something that people don't really understand, like a lot of times, especially in radio. I mean, you are speaking, no one sees you, but there's a connection that you make with your audience, in television, obviously, I'm seen, but I don't necessarily know who's watching.
Yeah.
So I'm just authentically talking from my line of experience, from my point of references. And when people connect like yourself in that way, it means so much to me because it's been such a long journey to get here. I've been in this game for 20 years. When you're talking about you don't have a PR team, it's like that's what it takes. I just recently started to form a team, and that's because the interactions have become too much for me to handle on my own. So it really came out of necessity, more than a sense of like needing a like housewives team type thing, you know, and you talked about your space and how you're presenting yourself. And you said it's good, but it's more than good. It's great. It's exactly who you are and who you need to be in the moment. And the idea is, when I first started doing my thing on social media, which was in 2016, really when I created Come Back with Erica Cobb, I was doing that from my bedroom, from like, the living in the kitchen, like wherever I could find a space that was quiet. And so the idea that I have this studio space now is just the manifestation of putting one foot in front of the other, one day at a time. So yes, that growth is so beautiful for not only you, but your audience, because they've come along with you. And that's what makes it so special.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. And you can't tell because I'm really good at what I do. This is my bedroom. My bed is right there. My bed is right there. And I love how you said that. Like my bed is on the other side. I like you said, there are 5 people in this house, and my bedroom is where I've worked for the last 6 years. I gave Instagram really and social media 22,000 60-second clips of motivation and inspiration. I literally locked myself in this room, Erica, and I spoke from experience. And the thing is, like a lot of people, they have heard my story because I'm transparent. But when I was in college, I was I had to be medically withdrawn. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1, PTSD from my childhood, and acute anxiety disorder. So I came home and there was this whole conversation piece about the Black family and the Black church, and oh, God can fix it. And it's like, no, prayer can fix it. And it was like, no, I need medicine. And I need doctors. And I didn't get that until I was really kicked out. And then later on in my life, when I actually returned to my grandmother. And I've been here 14 years. And yeah, so 14 years ago was when I started to actually get the help that I needed. Now, I left college at 18, 19, so people don't understand that. And you're right. I locked myself. I love to say this. I gave social media 5 winters, 5 springs, 5 summers, 5 falls, and every holiday in between.
Yeah.
Yes. And you're right. that is what it takes, because people, it's so funny. I had two guys that I absolutely adore, because that's part of my brand, is I show off Black and Latin men, which is quite odd. I'll get to that, because in my life, being an effeminate Black gay man, and at that time a young gay child, I was brutalized by Black men. I was never treated, nice. And yet, and still, as I grew up, I still reach back to make sure they have what they need, the exposure that I get, I shine on them so that they can get further in their career. So, I'm not maliceful or bitter, but like, I gave so much of myself, and, it was very difficult, and I learned a lot, and it's the lessons, but you're right. My following grew with me. And it's been a journey, because there was just like, I had a business partner. We fell out. It was my grandmother. We fell out. Yeah, we fell out. And then I went it alone. And then she and I made back up, and I'm still going it alone because I want the autonomy. But she stepped back into her advisory role, and that works for us. So yeah, it's been a journey. But like I learned in therapy, it's about the journey, not the destination.
Exactly.
So having said that, where did you go to school for college?
So I went to school at DePaul University in Chicago.
Okay.
And DePaul is very much I guess I'm a heritage like child, if you will. My both of my parents did their master's program at DePaul. My mother was actually a professor at DePaul. She recently retired, and so myself, professor emeritus, yes, she retired with the highest honors, honey, Dr. Cobb.
Yes.
uh, but yeah, so myself, my younger sister did our undergrads there. My older brother did his master's there. And then I have a younger brother who actually went to the neighboring school, Northwestern, because he played football.
Ah.
So yeah, so DePaul has been just a part of our lives, our family, for a really long time. But it was also very important to me because I was a kid. I'm a hybrid kid, I call myself. I'm from the west side of Chicago, an area called Garfield Park. Predominantly Black. It's considered an underserved community.
Mm.
And then we moved to the suburbs, and I was about 9 or 10 at that time when we moved. So I have these experiences from, the city to the suburbs. So going back to the city to go to school really made me more of an independent person. I went back to like where I started from in terms of like understanding how to, take care of myself and be street smart and all of that. So it's really kind of like, this duality to
Yes.
me.
Yes. Oh, I stopped. I was listening. You have an amazing voice. So radio, we'll get to that. You have an amazing voice. So I was like, that's why I was like, yes. And you know what? We share that in common. I actually was born in projects in Philadelphia. And my mother, when she first brought me home, I slept in a drawer. We were very poor. And my grandmother, during that time, she went back to school as an adult, and she became an educator, teacher, and she taught from grade school all the way up to high school. And she didn't just stop with her bachelor's. She then went and got her master's. And, she finished her career 34 credits from a doctorate, and she wanted that doctorate. And I talk to her about that sometimes. But my grandfather, Vietnam and Green Beret, and she lived with him for a little while in Germany in the beginning, and then 5 babies, and he wasn't around because he had checked out. And she, part of her story, she tells me about having to raise them alone, and how she felt like, her mother died at an early age. Her mother died her last year of high school. And it was very, very difficult for her. So my grandmother is a strong woman that comes from beating the odds. Right. So it actually ties in, because when I have a fight in me, I needed someone that had that same fight. And she was the one. My family was no help, but my grandmother, she was the one that rose, and she saw the fight in me, because I just refused to quit. I mean, there was a point where I went up in front of the state board for Social Security, and I should have gotten it, but there were things that happened that I didn't get it. But they told me that, oh, well, you can do one job. Now, mind you, I went to school for biology. I was pre-veterinary medicine. Yeah, undergrad. And my thing is, I too have that duality with you, because at 10 years old, we moved to the suburbs because of my grandmother's career. Mm-hmm. So, from 10 all the way up until the time I graduated and went to college, we were in the suburbs. But the state, I didn't know what was happening to me. And the state told me, well, you can fold laundry for the rest of your life. That's what they told me.
Yeah.
That was hard. But I had to defy the odds. So I'm used to defying the odds. So
pause there, because you said my family who was no help, and I don't want to speak for you, but I find that anytime there's adversity and, working in the system, volunteering system, I look at it a little differently. Like, maybe your family was the catalyst, it became your why, although it wasn't the reason, although they weren't necessarily in support. Support comes in very different ways. And sometimes it comes in the way of adversity, of being the antagonist in someone's life. So there's always a purpose to all of it. There's a purpose in that pain.
You're absolutely right, because that's what it did. It became, I have to prove myself. I have to do this. I have to do this, with limited help. It became that. And my grandmother always, because she calls me the Phoenix, because I constantly reinvent myself. I rise and rise and keep reinventing myself. And I never quit. I will never. I've encountered people in my industry of entertainment, because I've been doing this for 20 years too, under the radar. I started back then, like I said, no medicine and things, but I journeyed to Paris at 22, and I'm 39 now. So I got the opportunity to model, and that was very stressful. And I did not know that would trigger a manic response under all of that stress. So I had to come back from Paris, but I left my heart there. It was like I've worked the last 17 years, because I went in 2005, and I've been working every single day since leaving to get back there. And now I'm in a position where I can prepare to take my business abroad. And you're right, my family, though they weren't the supportive help that I need, they were definitely the catalyst, because my attitude was, I'll show you. I'll show you. I'm not like, that was it. I'm not going to take this lying down. I'm not going to take this. Like, I'm going to. And the only reason why I say that about my family is because I look at the struggles that my grandmother had. She, like I said, she was the matriarch. But it seemed like if anybody in the family ever had a problem, they usually came to her, and it usually involves some sort of financial endowment. And that was very hard on her. And then when she started helping me, Erica, my family, I listened on the phone. She let me hear for myself, this is your family. And I listened to them tell her, you're making a mistake. He's crazy. Why are you doing this? You're throwing your good money after bad. These were her children. And, they didn't just stop there. They excommunicated my grandmother, her own children. They excommunicated her. They stopped coming to see her. They stopped coming to check on her. She's 74 now. So for so long, it was her and I, until my nephews came at a young age, my sister's children. So you're right. Even in them doing that, they helped forge the relationship that my grandmother and I have, that even when we fell out as business partners, we were able to reconcile and be as strong as possible and move forward. Where they thought we were going to implode, we actually got it together. It was contained and quelled and moved forward. And, I don't know why. I feel from you, and maybe because you are an advocate for children, maybe this is just my inner child speaking. I've had 15 years of therapy, but I feel very comfortable talking about this with you. And I don't know. Do you hear the stories like this often?
Yeah, first of all, thank you. That makes me, I think there's a weird thing when you're in media because there's who you are and then there's the perception of who you are. And I have always, that's not always, but especially in my younger years, I'm 40 now.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first, yes, I'm going to be 41 in like any day now.
Yes.
Uh,
Happy early birthday.
Thank you. But early in my career, I was trying so hard to get people to see me as I believed myself to be.
Right.
And now I don't try to do that. I just lead with the purest intentions. And if people, the truth is, people are going to be committed to believing a narrative about you, whether it's real or it's a total fallacy.
Mhm.
But what I've learned is, especially in the past like 5 years,
Yeah.
just by me being intentional, that comes through more than me trying to make sure that people see me as who I believe myself to be. And so that means a lot when you are comfortable to tell your story in the, raw and pure form. Everyone isn't deserving to hear
Yeah.
our sad stories, and
Yeah.
or even stories of like our setback season to our comeback
Yeah.
season. But I feel very honored and privileged to hear about it because we have right now we have a sibling group of 5,
Mhm.
and they're all under the age of 10. And
Mm.
it's a story that I wasn't unfamiliar with
Mhm.
before we took on this particular family.
Mhm.
um, I've seen it in a lot of different iterations, both near and far in
Yeah.
proximity. And, everyone's story is very unique. It is the, foundation of who we are. And there's so many issues in society.
Yeah.
We talk about a lot of things from like, from government assistance to mental health issues, and
Yeah.
people want to conflate and politicize those things. But truly, we're talking about human beings
Human beings.
and a very human experience that not only needs to be shared so that history doesn't repeat itself, but also it needs to be shared so that people finally feel heard.
Yeah.
So I feel just so blessed in my life that, I didn't have a perfect life by
Right.
any means. Uh,
Right.
but, compared to a lot of the situations that I've seen and encountered, I just realized just how blessed I am. And I think the saying is very true: to whom much is given, much is required. So I'm just happy to walk in that requirement on my life.
You know, I want to stay there for a second. What made you, you know how they say, what possessed you to get involved like that with families and children? Because these children were going to be coming from, like I'm even saying to you, their trauma is going to be great, and
Yeah.
it's going to require years and years and years of focal attention. So what caused you to get involved with that?
I mean, so growing up, my parents so there's 4 of us biological children,
Yeah.
but there were always children who either lived with us for a couple of years or would come and stay with us for the weekend,
Oh.
that my parents were either the legal guardians for or mentors, or, just someone that they knew that they had a safe space. So
Mm.
I grew up very much with the idea that family is not only biological, family is also chosen.
Yeah.
And I saw my parents fulfill that role in other kids' lives. And charity has always been something that has been important to me, but it's how, like, it's the intentionality behind it.
Yeah.
Like, we can give money, we can talk about things and post things, but really it's about the time
Yeah.
that we're spending, trying to do something that has been put on our hearts and on our lives. So for me, it was just a very interesting way that all of this happened. So when I moved to Denver in
Yeah.
2009, one of the first friends that I made, a girl named Shauna, a woman named Shauna, who now, like, I introduced her to her husband. They got a baby, and my husband and I are the godparents. So that shows you
Right.
how far we've come since 2009. But She is truly one of the most selfless people that I know. And she
Yeah.
came to the radio station that I was doing mornings at, and she was promoting this event, this for Children's Miracle Network. And it was a
Yeah.
casino night. And she's like, "Oh, I'd like to tell you more about it." So we just became friends. She was actually the first friend I made here in Denver.
Yeah.
And over the years, she continued to do work for children.
Yeah.
And she introduced me to this organization, CASA, which stands for Court Appointed Special Advocates, and asked me to just do like a opener and kind of MC her casino night. So I did that for a couple of years. And in 2013, she asked me to come to this big event that's kind of a kickoff. And it's kind of the way that new people are introduced to the mission. And I was going through the hardest time in my life. It was my setback season. You
Mhm.
know, I was divorced, I'm
Mhm.
unemployed, I'm bankrupt. I had $51.73 in
Mhm.
my bank account.
Mhm.
And I heard this speech by this girl named Sarah, who was 17 years old, and she had a casa for a few years. You know, she had a situation where her father wasn't in the picture and her mother had a substance abuse issue.
Mhm.
And she had gone from being a truant, student,
Yeah. Yeah.
to being on the honor roll
Mm.
through this casa and all of the, resources that were poured into her and her brother. And she was so dynamic.
Mhm.
And just the way that a child's life can be changed in that short period of time by having people that they can rely on
Yeah.
and who are going to advocate for them. And at the end of that luncheon, this woman stood up and she said, "I will pay for all of your college at any university that you want to go to."
Whoa.
I was like, I have like goosebumps right now thinking about
Yeah,
it.
I
It was
felt
just like
that.
like the most powerful thing that, it was just like, wow. And I remember giving $50. Keep
Yeah.
in mind, I had
You
$51.
won. I was going to say.
I gave $50 to the organization in hopes that that money would go further for a child than whatever it was going to do for me, because it certainly wasn't going to pay my rent. It likely would have bought me a couple, 2, 3 bottles of wine, which is
Yeah.
at that point, I was like, just give me the wine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
that's where we were. So
Yeah.
yeah, and so I gave that to the organization, and they asked me to MC a couple more of their events. So I just started that way. And then as a couple years went by, my husband and I started becoming a little bit more active in the organization. And he joined the board about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And we decided that it wasn't enough for me just to talk about the program from the fundraising standpoint, which is very important. And I'm super excited to be, the voice of that, like raising money, like in live. I can tell some people to like open your wallets, like I love that. I'm like, oh, we got
Yeah.
$20,000 over here. I'm like, those shoes are Gucci. Are you gonna match the
See,
shoes?
you a
I'm
mess.
like, I have no shame when it comes to fundraising, right? But I thought that it was important, and my
Mhm.
husband found it important that if he was going to sit on the board and I'm going to make people give all their money,
Yeah.
that we should have a true, intimate knowledge of
Yeah.
everything that it takes for the organization that we were fundraising
Yeah.
for. So a year and a half ago, we got certified. It's about 30 to 40 hours of training.
Yeah.
And then we got our case over a year ago, and we've been
Wow.
with these kiddos ever since.
Wow. You see, even in my work, I don't think that I'm not going to say the general public, but I don't feel, I'm going to say I don't feel that enough people understand the power of giving back. The power, not us, and not even say giving back, the power of giving.
Mm.
I don't feel that enough people understand how transformative that is. When I, like you said, when I came to social media, I was very upset. I was dealing with a lot. I was in therapy. I was in turmoil. I was looking at a dream die because I've always been in entertainment. I've sang, I've done all kinds of stuff, model, I've done a lot of things. And my dream I felt was dying. So my attitude was, well, if you digitally preserve it, at least somebody will hear it. One day, if your time passes and the sun sets on the brilliance that was given to you and you don't get to use it, it will inspire someone else. And that makes me, but that's what I did. I said, you know what? I'm just going to hit record and I'm just going to say all the things I've learned, all the things that come to me, all the things that are in me. And in doing that, I unlocked a lot of spiritual gifts. Like I found out that, and I mean, my family is religious. I walked away from Christianity. I'm more spiritual because, being a young, effeminate, gay Black man in the church was not exactly conducive. So I forged my own relationship with who I call the divine. And I hear a lot from my ancestors. And now I do a lot of shaman, oracle, prophetic, seer, healing type of work. And, I don't have a magic wand or anything, but, that work, it moves me so much. And it's just that people, they don't understand that power because like you said, I think some people get nervous because, oh my God, I can't save every child. Well, no one asked you to save every child. Right. Just pick one.
Yeah.
Just one. Just one. If you pick one and then she picks one and then he picks one and then they pick one, we'll get them all covered.
Yes.
And I find that people, especially from humble beginnings, we try to do too much of that because we know the hurt, we know the pain. But even what I learned, pace yourself. Just one. Just one. That's how I did every single message that I have, and it turned out to be 22,000 because bipolar 1 gives me a lot of energy. So yeah, a lot of energy. It's exactly like it became a superpower, but one video at a time, and it just grew. It went viral. I talk to people all over the world, Erica, and I'm just like, I said, I went to my grandmother today because I finally got off my COVID weight, the quarantine weight. Right. Like for me being a fashion person, it was a big deal for me. So, I couldn't fit a lot of my dresses. And now I got on this little gold belt, and this belt is it's a 30 waist again, and I'm like, and I'm fitting it.
Now you see, I'm trying to get where you at.
but you know what it is? It's working out. I just work out a lot. I just do a lot of sit-ups, a lot of push-ups, a lot of bicycle kicks on my floor because I'm scared to go to a gym because we're still in the middle of this pandemic. And I actually just got over COVID. My nephew, there was an outbreak at his job, and he works with the public. And he and his girlfriend came home, and before it could be contained, me and my 74-year-old grandmother caught it.
Oh.
Yeah. And we were both vaccinated. And for some reason this year, we both got our flu shots. And I tell you, that saved our lives. Yeah. Because it took us, like people don't understand this pandemic. That took us down. I had to reschedule a whole week's worth of work. I couldn't talk. I couldn't even lift my head. And then what's so crazy, I'm not advocating either way. I got my vaccine, but I saw improvement with the herbs. I started doing a lung detox, and just of mullein leaves and vitamin C and vitamin D and zinc and stuff like that. It came in a capsule. I got it on Amazon. If there is anybody's interested, I'll put it in the details. But it helped clear all of that, and it was a lot. It was a lot. And my grandmother, she still has the residuals of it, but she's coming through it. She's a trooper, Erica. She's a trooper. She's a strong woman. I don't say it to her enough. She's a strong woman. I get it from her.
Incredible. I mean, I'm so glad that you both are recovering. I mean, I've spoken about just the past 2 years has been a tremendous amount of loss. And I really had to make a decision. Last New Year's Eve,
Yeah.
um, my friend who was also she started off as my Pilates instructor,
Yeah.
and then she relocated to New York, and so we started doing virtual yoga sessions, and
Yes.
that was really a part of my morning ritual. I would meet with her at 5:30 in the morning, two
Yeah.
days a week, up in my studio
Yeah.
area virtually. And unfortunately, she took her life, and I learned about it on New Year's Eve that morning. That's
Yeah.
the news I woke up to. And I really kind of considered that to be the first COVID death in my life,
Yeah.
because I do believe that isolation, especially for people who were already suffering with mental
Yeah.
health issues,
Yeah.
became too much for a lot of people to bear. And then, the following day, New Year's Day, was when my aunt passed away from COVID. And
Mm.
I remember thinking and being so sad on New Year's Day that I was less than hopeful. I had no hope
Yeah.
in my heart, like at all. And I cannot ever remember a time in my life that that's happened. And,
Yeah.
I went to 6 funerals over the past
Oh
year.
God.
And, many of them were COVID deaths. And it's just one of those things where, I'm so grateful. And you said you were vaccinated. My
Yeah.
husband just got over COVID.
Yeah.
We were vaccinated and boosted,
Yeah.
and it didn't affect me at
Yeah.
all, but it
Right.
did affect him. And I was just very grateful that we were on this side of it, where it wasn't like when my aunt was sick and it
Yeah.
was like, will she make it, will she not make it? Like, there
Yeah.
was more hope
Yeah.
in that situation. We didn't have to go to the hospital or anything like that. So, yeah, this past year and just everything that we've been through, I just really want to encourage people to keep tabs on their mental health.
Yeah.
Acknowledge that this has been an unprecedented time of loss, and there are a lot of feelings that are either going to come out in the moment or it's going to
Yeah.
be delayed trauma.
Yeah.
So just the permission to deal with that,
Yeah.
like the permission to really um, experience everything that you're feeling.
Yeah.
You said something earlier about your ancestors and the
Yeah.
power of that, and
Mhm.
I am very, very into my ancestral connections. Like, this studio is, I always say, my life. When people are like, oh, somebody's coming for you, I'm like, honey, this life is divinely ordered and is
Right.
protected. Okay. I have my, the way that I honor my ancestors.
Mhm.
There's a lot of power in this room. I
Mhm.
keep my little picture of Big Mama
Mhm.
right by
Yep.
the camera, mainly by the camera, because Big Mama taught me how to show up and show out. Okay.
Yeah.
She's in on all things that happen in the studio. I can always hear, sometimes I say it and then I can immediately smell her.
Yes.
So there were just times in the past couple years where the messages were so strong because I needed to
Yes.
hear them in a way that I had never needed to hear them
Yeah.
before.
And even as you're speaking, I'm hearing things, and they concern your life and your future. And th- what I'm hearing is there's so much more that you want to do, and there's
Mm.
so much more that you will do. That's the message that I'm getting right now as we're talking about spirit. And I hear there's so much more. She's driven. She's driven. She's always been driven. And literally, I hear she's going to get it all. She's going to get it all. She's going to
Oh
get
my
it all.
gosh, you are like you
Yeah.
really are making me want to cry, because
Don't cry. Don't mess up your makeup.
it
No, it's
just
just what I hear. Like and the spirit that is saying this to me is feminine and cloaked and very, very strong, very good, very powerful, very regal, very reserved. And the spirit is just saying she's very driven. She was made to be that driven. It was destiny for her to be who she is. I'm trying not to cry, but it was destiny for her to be who she is. And who she is will change this world. That's what's going on. And I love that because I already see that from you. So this is not a message, and that's what people, they get it wrong, especially in religion. You shouldn't hear a message for the first time and go, oh my God. It should actually be a confirmation to what you already know. And you already know this, and the spirit is letting me know that you know this. You know you're driven. You know that you have things that you want to do. There's a checklist, and that checklist is going shoot, 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 shoot right down the checklist. And that is amazing. And you're right. Even during the first year, I had my nephews here, and one of my nephews in the middle of the pandemic had a manic episode. It was his first. He was 19, and it usually happens around that age. And it was his first, and he left our home and went to stay with his father in California. And his father is helping him deal with that. But I had to get a support animal. I had to buy a cat. I had to adopt a cat, actually. I went into the shelter and I got a beautiful 3-year-old calico. And this is the thing, she's traumatized. So it's actually been quite cathartic to work on her every day. At first, when she came here, she wouldn't let you touch her. She was nice, but she wouldn't let you touch her. Human touch was an issue for her. So then I started feeding her. And as I fed her, I'd run both my hands down her body, because she's actually really long. She's quite fat too. and I love it. We're not bothering it. She eats twice a day, dry food. I know animals. We're leaving her alone. She's okay. She's been to the vet. But I still, every time I see her, her name is Poppy, like the flower. And every time I see her, I call her Mom. And I'll just run my hands down her body every chance I get. And I see that I've had her since August. I think August the 30th or somewhere around there. So she's fairly new to us, but even in her trauma, it's amazing to see her try. She tries. And with everyone in the house, she tries, and she understands each person. And when I was in the throes of COVID, laying in my bed, she was right there. She was right there. And I was just like, and then when I would doze off to sleep, she would go find my grandmother, jump up on her bed, and be right there. And I was just like it helped us get through it. Because we were like, it was like, well, Mom, we're not going to leave you. We got to take care of you. We got places to go and things to see and people to meet. Like it was an amazing, amazing thing. And you're right. Like I hadn't had any, I had heard on my grandfather's side, but I wasn't, directly close or connected to them. But I had heard there were quite a few people that passed on that side of the family. And you said something that was very important, like the isolation of it all. The isolation. And honestly, I don't want to make a political statement here, but I think that if people that were no mask and this is that and the other, if they had really got to the underlying issue and said, I don't want to be isolated. I'm scared of being lonely. Excuse me. I'm scared of being lonely. Like if they had told the real truth behind the fear, we could have gotten through that all in a more therapeutic way. There would have, we could have done something as far as the country where, virtual therapists or, things like that to help people through. But instead, I'm not wearing a mask. All that was said. But it's just like
about things like, masks and this is not a political statement. I just
right.
think that people are comfortable with what they know and understand.
Yeah.
And it really comes down to the least common denominator. Like if you're going to really have a back and forth with someone,
yeah,
generally, I mean, think about how, newspapers are written
yeah,
for a third grade reading level,
yes,
mostly, and that's for the mass understanding.
yes,
So it's always like, you get into an argument with someone, and then all of these things come out that are like, very, very petty or surface
yeah,
level things. But at the root of it
yeah,
is the way that you destroyed my spirit.
yeah,
It's the way that I can't articulate to you what I'm truly feeling without you labeling me as weak.
yeah,
there's a lot more to that. I'm just going to pause for a second because I have a
Mhm.
heart out in 10,
Okay.
just so you know. But I wanted to go back to the story about your cat because I think we forget how important animals are. And during the lockdown, my husband and I were doing all these things. And so last year, I decided for, I think is a birthday gift or something. One of them was this animal whisperer. And she was going to tell us, what our dog, who is 13 years old, and we rescued him. Well, we took him in after my husband's aunt passed away about 4 years
Mm.
ago,
Mm.
and he was her only child.
Oh.
And he meant so much to her that he promised her we would take him if anything happened to her. So
Yeah.
we flew him back from Chicago, and he's been with us ever since. So the
Mhm.
animal whisperer lady was like, "Do you have a son?" And we're like, "No, we don't have any kids." And she's like, "A nephew?" And we're like, "Yeah, but Anthony's nephew is like a teenager, and they're older kids, and my nephew was like very young, like I
Yeah.
think 1 at the time."
Yeah.
And she's like, "No, no, no, this is a little boy, and he's around the age of like 4." And Spike's telling me that he is his one of his best friends, like he's his best friend.
Oh.
And he gets so excited to see him that he has to help take care of him because they have a similar background.
Yeah.
So fast forward a few days later, we go to see one of our Casa kids, not even thinking about it. It was very cold
Wow.
that day, or it was very hot that day. So we couldn't have Spike in the car. And so we left him, but we would always bring him. And the little boy said, "Where's Spike?" And we're like, "Oh, we're so sorry, honey. We can't have him in the car because it's too hot. So if we go into
Mhm.
places, it's not okay for him." And he said, "But Spike's my best friend." And yes. And the similar background, the similar situation was that they both had experienced trauma and abuse.
Oh.
And before our aunt had or got him, she drove 8 hours to a shelter, and he had been severely, severely abused. And she
Mm.
nursed him and coddled him back to health. And then
Mm.
he came and lived with us. And
Yeah.
so that was like
Yeah.
our,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That.
Mhm.
Now I'm new to this, so explain to me what a hard out at 10 is.
Oh, I I have to leave at 55.
Okay.
Have another podcast.
No problem.
Sorry.
Listen, I'm getting ready to let you go anyway, because this has been
Okay.
beautiful. It's been a beautiful conversation. We don't need no more.
No, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to like be like, I have a heart out in 10, but I just
No, but I
didn't want
like hearing it. It's radio talk.
to.
So yeah, that's why I'm like, okay, so listen, give me 3 words that inspire you.
Oh man. 3 words that inspire me. Um, manifestation.
Yes.
Um, oof, comeback.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, I want to pick so carefully. Faith.
Yeah. Good words. Very
Yeah.
good words. So tell everybody where they can find you. I'm going to put the links to everything in the description, but like what you want, where can people find you on social media?
Well, first of all, I have to say, the Queen of Shade. This has been an absolute honor and a privilege to speak with you. Your story is incredibly inspiring,
Thank you.
and just know in the times where we are doubting ourselves the most,
Yeah.
that sometimes you have to show up, if not for you, it's for those who came before you,
Yeah.
or those who need to see you win.
Yeah.
A lot of times people will say, show humility, be humble, sit down. And, I think that's a very fine line, because
Yeah.
by being the most yourself,
Yeah.
who's to define what that humility is? And there's someone out there who needs to see you win unapologetically.
Yeah.
So I am so proud of you. I'm so proud of everything that you are
Thank
doing.
you.
Your platform is amazing, and I appreciate you reaching out to me and giving me so many flowers. I mean, this room is full of flowers right now. And yes, I just want to say that keep on keeping on. So you can find me at Erica Cobb on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Now I just joined the TikTok. Okay.
Yeah.
The TikTok,
Yeah.
I am Erica Cobb because
Okay.
excuse me. Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
Somebody took my name.
Oh,
The TikTok.
oh. Well, listen, it's your brand. You know you can send a message to TikTok and say, listen, this is the trademark brand here. I need this, and they will. Yeah, they
She
can.
seems very sweet. I don't want to
Oh,
intimidate her.
see, look, oh, see, you're a softie. You say, oh, she's sweet. I'm not gonna pull down the full weight of what could happen on her. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have all been blessed by the presence, and you have heard the vocal stylings of Miss Erica Cobb. Thank you so much. And have a great next show because you're busy. I know you have so many different shows and then there's television and then there's this. So I'm just so thankful that you even agreed to do this. And when I asked you, it was immediate. You were like, okay, no problem. Yeah, yeah. And I thank you for giving me a chance to even tell my story, to talk to you, to bond, you know? So thank you so much. I'm going to end it now. So say bye.
Bye. Thank you, Queen.
You're welcome. Don't go nowhere. Hold on.